Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I don't know if I am audible. Today I've started 2 minutes earlier. I'll be just getting ready. I should start in the next 2 minutes officially. So if you're there, I can see there's one person already there. Daniel, how are you? How are you, my cousin? Karibu sana. If you're joining in, please just give me a thumbs up. Am I audible? Today I have a new microphone. I hope it is working well. Greetings, everyone, from the land of the Buddhist. I am in Bangkok. Glad to be here today. I have missed you guys. It's been 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks since we last had our sessions. Nancy, I can see you. Please let me know where you're watching me from. Personally, I am in Thailand, just enjoying, the rain that is currently going on in this land. So if you're joining in, please just give me a wave. Let me know where you're watching me from. Invite a friend. Today we are talking about communication. Communication. Oh my goodness. Communication. We will be addressing silent treatment. We will be addressing all these things that we see happening in relationships that are not good. So I can see Nancy is saying, I'm in Kenya. Karibu sana. Daniel, live from Kampala. Thank you so much, Ian. I can see you. Damaris Wafula, thank you for joining in. Guys, as you join, please let me know where you're watching me from. I have heard that I'm loud and clear. I am happy to hear that. So karibuni, we will continue as we wait for the rest of the people to join. The good thing is that they can always catch up with this later on, so we get going so that we can keep it short and sweet as usual. I'd like to make this just strictly 1 hour so that you can be able to prepare for your week. So today we're going to be talking about the second pillar of relationship. If you're new to this channel, kindly check out the videos that I have done about temperament and personality. Make sure you also grab that link that I think we had pasted there. Just do your own personality test. Get to know your temperament, because it's very, very important, when it comes to engaging with your partner, with your spouse, with your colleague, with, your family members, when it comes to communication. So knowing you is the first and foremost important thing, before you can get to know others. Basically, when we're in relationships, we go in with many expectations. We go there with, so many goals, but half the time we end up very disappointed. We end up very, very hurt because we went there not even knowing ourselves, and we wanted the other person to understand us. So it cannot happen, guys. The first thing and the most important thing is to know yourself, so that even as you journey on, you're able to kind of like guide the other person who's walking along the journey with you. It could be in any area. Someone asked me, is it just about relationships, that, within intimate relationships? No. Even in areas of careers where you find yourself, in a church, wherever you find yourself placed, just make sure that you know and you're able to guide people. I find it very awkward when someone comes in for therapy and they're saying, someone said that I am rude, someone said that I am this and this. Who is that person to define you? Were you born with that person? Okay, so part of mental health is knowing you so that no one else can come in and label you. Guys, let me say this. Everyone in this world has a right, civil rights. Okay, Doreen Modoni, Karibu sana, thank you for tuning in. Okay, so everyone has a right, okay, to say what they want to say. All right, but no one has a right to define you. No one has a right to label you, because these are some of the things that end up hurting us. Lucy Kaime, thank you for tuning in. Doreen, I can see you're in Nakuru. Okay, these are the things that end up hurting us. Someone said this about me. My spouse told me I'm stupid. My spouse said this about me. Guys, honestly, it's a high time we change this narrative. Can we get to invest in ourselves? Can we walk into those counseling rooms? Have an engagement with that counselor, that therapist, talk about you, do you. It's a high time you knew yourself so well that whatever you deliver in terms of even just doing your duties is almost to perfection. We can never be 100%, but I believe. Lucy Wabosha, na you, I can see you're in Machakos. Greetings, karibu sana. Invite a friend or two. All right, beloved W, Florida sends our love. Oh, I receive love from Bangkok. Karibuni sana. So today we are going to be talking about communication. Mindspa TV, thank you so much for being here. Please make sure that you post our number so that anyone who is in need of therapy can be able to reach out. Boniface, I can see you. Boniface Mashanga, karibu. Eunice Ndungu, karibu from Kiambu. Ohoroa aku, welcome. So today we are going to be talking. Sylvia, karibu sana, tuned it from Namibia. We're going to be talking in. Letitia, karibu sana. I'll just be acknowledging you as you come in. Please invite a friend. So today we're going to be talking about communication, which I believe, Grace, karibu sana. Habari yako, karibu sana. We're going to be talking about communication, which is the second pillar of any relationship. Purity na you, karibu sana. Salimia watu wa Riruta. All right, so what is communication? I'll just define this from a layman's term. Communication is as easy as sending a message from one person to the other, whereby the first person is the sender and the second person is the receiver. Merithairo karibu and Wairimo karibu. So what we're just saying, because we have all gone to school and we know we've done this thing in English and all these subjects that we do. I really don't want to go into the theoretical analysis of the communication process, but I just want to bring to our attention just the mutual understanding, just the basic level of understanding what communication is. And it is basically, guys, passing on a message from one person. The first person is the sender. The second person is the receiver. So in this case, when you're talking about a relationship, the first person is one spouse, the husband or the wife, and they're passing on a message to the wife or the husband, vice versa. Okay, now it could be a boyfriend to a girlfriend. It could be an employer to an employee. All right, it could be from a mother to a parent. All right, so karibu sana Ann. So at the end of the day, we must understand there are two people here. Communication is not a one-way thing. Let's not get it wrong. All right, so there must be the person who is sending this message. Now, it takes a process, and I'm doing this so that I can lead you on to where the juice of this message is. All right. Now, there's the first, the process of communication, and it comes, of course, through many forms. Now, first and foremost, whenever someone is communicating, you're not late, Miriam. Whenever someone is communicating, key thing, they come in with their experience. Now, I'm going to be kind of like narrowing this down to relationships, because this is what we are all about. And I said relationships can vary, okay? Now, when you're talking about a marriage, a love and intimate relationship, there's a way someone knows you. There's a way someone knows you. So if you're known to be a very quiet person, very chilled out, the phlegmatic, okay? Or let's even say, let's talk about cholerics, very quickly angered and very loud, sanguines, we always told that sanguines are always talking, about anything and everything. So there's a way this person who is on the other end will come in to communicate to you and with you based on how they know you. Okay, right now Venus is very loud, so anyone who's talking to me will kind of like elevate their voice, the tone will be high, because they want to kind of like match my tone. Okay, they want to synchronize with my energy. So, how someone knows you dictates how they will communicate to you. That is the first thing, guys. So, in relationships where we have spouses who are very ignorant, you're always ignoring your partner, you find that at the beginning they will make an effort to communicate to you, but once they realize this is you, you're always not interested in what they're saying, you're never responding. Basically, they send you messages, they are the sender, but you don't receive it and you don't respond. They take a step back. It is the reason why we have couples who say, me, when I have issues, I just keep quiet. I'll just keep quiet because my spouse never responds. My spouse is not interested. In fact, he changed or she changed. So I'm better off just keeping quiet for the sake of this relationship or for my own sanity. That is experience talking there. Hi, Favored. Hi, Ruth. Karibuni sana. Secondly, attitude. I always say attitude will dictate your altitude in the relationship. I'll repeat that again. Your attitude as a person, as an individual, as a key role player in that relationship will dictate the altitude of that relationship. This is where we have pride coming in, ego. All right. Some attitudes like I'm not worth it. So you don't feel like what you say matters. All right. Now, that attitude can make or break that relationship. For example, if you don't see yourself as worthy, if you don't see yourself as beautiful, how then do you approach your partner? How then do you have these intimate moments with your partner? Because you don't feel like you deserve to be loved. Attitude. Let me talk about ego, and I will touch on it later on. Where there is ego, there is no God. Egoistic people are very selfish. They're not empathetic. And when we talked about the temperaments last time, we realized that there's some personalities, there's some temperaments that just naturally are not empathetic. Like they can't relate with feelings, they can't relate with people. Like you're crying. Why are you crying? Have you ever been in that position where you're just crying? I remember there are times I used to cry. I even want to collapse, guys. Like like I'm not eating. I'm not. It's just tears. And my spouse would be like, "Guy, how do I deal with this woman?" And I'm so emotional whenever I'm crying because it's part of what I do as therapy. Like basically, tears detox my system. All right. So sometimes we need people who can be able to, hold us, hug us, empathize with us. But on the other hand, the person who's on the other end, the receiver, remember, you're the one who's sending the communication across. I'm not okay, I need a hug, I am not well. But the other person, Judith Karibu, the other person, comes in with a very negative attitude. Like, I mean, how is a grown-up man crying? How is a grown-up woman crying? So there's no empathy. So that attitude normally brings down a relationship, or in other words, it makes that relationship dysfunctional. Okay? The third thing is skills. And when I talk about skills, we're talking about, the things that actually, have come in, with a lot of weight when it comes to communication. Skills, guys. This is why we do life coaching. Because some of us just don't have confidence in life. Some of us just don't know how to put our messages across. So you find that even when it comes to communicating to your spouse, when it comes to putting a message across, you are not able to deliver. You lack the words. You lack the knowledge of the timings. There are people who just, in the middle of a celebration will come and just drop a very bad, message. You guys, I don't know, and this end up spoiling the occasion. That shows that this person does not have life skills to be able to execute the art. And I want to underline that, the art of communication. All right, that's the third thing. So if you're joining in, we are talking about, what is key when it comes to communication, and what basically makes a communication end up being the way it is. And we've talked about experience, we've talked about attitude, we've talked about skills. And the fourth one is perception. Now, that perception, hi Yvonne, that perception is very, very instrumental in how we deal with our spouses. Basically, if you run on a perception or a belief system that your spouse does not understand you and will never understand you, hi Ras baby, karibu sana. If you run on that perception, there is no way you will ever create the time, or ever, let me put it this way, waste your time to look for your spouse. Why? There's something that you have wired in yourself that commands how you think and how you feel. And that thing is what I'm calling the belief system. That wiring is what is distorted. So it hinders you from being able to communicate effectively with your spouse. Why? You have what? You have done what? You have labeled them. Okay? And that is why I say continuous therapy is very important. Esther, karibu. Karibu sana. It is so important that we learn to have the right kind of mind frame, the right kind of what I call the wiring. Okay? Because once you put something, once you send a command to your mind about someone, let me tell you, this is the most profound thing. Your body picks up that command and it makes you behave in sync with what you have put in your mind. Okay? So some of these things that we see in relationships, the silent treatment, the avoidance, and all these things that we see when we're dealing with our spouses, is because there is a perception that is dictating how we think, and of course, in extension, how we feel. All right? Now, quickly, as I said, I don't want to take you back, guys, into school and, English lesson. Some of us failed in English, but I want to bring in the 4 types of communication. Please allow me to just touch on it very, very quickly so that now we can move on the critical elements of this presentation today. When we're talking about communication, and again, I will narrow it down to relationships. The first one is the verbal. Basically, what I'm doing right now is I'm using my voice to communicate to anyone who wants to embrace this mental health talk. Okay? So there's the verbal. And when you're talking, when you're using your voice, what you require is active listening, like what we are doing right now. Esther has just tuned it from Dubai. Okay? Purity has just tuned it from Namibia. They're coming in, they're hearing me, and they're also responding actively and saying, Venus, I am here. That is what we call verbal communication, and it is being responded to by by written communication. All right? Majoli Wamboi, karibu sana. I hope to hear from you. I can see you're also a psychologist. Mercy, karibu. I can see you're watching from Finland. All right? So verbal is what I've talked about. Let's move to the non-verbal. Now, this is the most, if there's a man in this room, please note this. A lot of us ladies communicate using non-verbal. Non-verbal. We normally wrap it up in emotions and behaviors, and we hope that you can be able to pick it up, analyze it, and then respond to it. So that is why a lot of the times we will not talk, but we will cry. Okay? We will not talk, but we will not do the little things that we normally do. All right? That is the non-verbal. And the non-verbal is normally where the weight of communication lies. I always say this. Sometimes don't listen to the words. Because when you listen to the words, you will be caught up in, with the group of, fake people. People who know how to flirt, they use words. But if you really want to know what's going on in someone's mind, check out their behavior. Behavior doesn't lie. Behavior obeys the belief system, the wiring, that thing that has been installed in the hard drive, which is the mind. All right. So when it comes to marriages and relationships, a lot of us women, I've seen, is it Martha saying she's a psychologist? Yeah. This we know, a lot of us women will communicate using the non-verbal. It basically, it is our where we specialize. We have masters in non-verbal communication. All right. Now, the other two are really not very important, but I'll mention them. Of course, the visual, where we have the posters, we have photos and all that, all right? And the written, where we have emails and blogs and all that, okay? So I wanted us to grasp that point. But before I continue, I also want to bring in what brings out how we communicate, what factors influence how we communicate. Quickly, gender. Now, gender, I had just touched on gender, but I'm going to re-emphasize on it again. Now, the way men communicate and the way women communicate, two different things. And that is why I want to quickly rush into the Bible and say, when the serpent was creeping, going to Eve to communicate to her about asking her, engaging her verbally, not written, not visual, verbally. In fact, he used visual and verbal. And he asked her, Eve, what did God say about this apple? There was that communication. But what I always ask people, where was Adam? Where was Adam when the serpent was creeping in? Now, if you're not a Christian, you will pardon me. This is what I specialize on. So allow me to just give it as an example. What I'm trying to say is the serpent knew how to tap into the woman's way of communication. And what did he do? He brought the visual and he brought the verbal to affect her non-verbal. So what I'm trying to say is that these forms of communications can be combined to actually bring out or create an impact in a home, in a relationship. Now, a man and a woman will communicate very differently. Guys, women think with their hearts. That is why when a woman comes in for therapy and you ask them why, what has brought them in for the session, they will tell you, I just feel like my husband doesn't love me. I just don't feel, it's about everything she says. It's how she feels. It's about her heart. Now, when it comes to the man, it is a very total different, game or affair. The man is thinking logistically. I have been doing this. He's very calculative. He's very strategic. And that is why we say even the serpent himself is thought to be a man, because he uses strategy. He uses his mind. All right. So the gender differences brings in how people communicate. Let's move on. Let's look at the race and culture. Now, we want to agree. Anyone here from Oga land? My brother, my sister? Are you there? Oh, yes. Now, my brothers and sisters from Oga land, I love you, Kabisa. But we have ways certain people communicate, like cultures, people from the Western African part of the continent, okay? They're normally very, headstrong when they communicate. Hey, whoa, who watches those movies, baby? There's a time I was a great fan of these movies because, hey, Chineke, sound effects of everything they do, okay? Now, that is culture coming out. When you move, to the, Eastern or Asian part of, the continent, very polite, okay? Namaste, So there's a level of what? Politeness. So we must agree and realize that our cultures, the races that we find ourselves, in, contribute to how we end up communicating within our relationship. Third, guys, I will not leave this one out. Age. Now, some of us are married to very young spouses. And some of us also are married to very old spouses, almost extinct. Now, the age gap between, you and your spouse also matters because psychologically, a woman is said to be 5 years older in age when it comes to the mental space. And a man is also said to be 5 years younger mentally as compared to the real age. That one you must know. So take for example, you're married to a man who is 30 and you're 25. Ideally, this man is 25 when it comes to the psychological aspect. Caroline, karibu sana. And you as a woman, you're considered to be 30 years of age. And this thing, guys, ends up bringing a lot of conflict in relationship, because if a woman is mentally older in the relationship, you find that a lot of the time she's very dissatisfied because she finds that the man is lagging behind and in behavior. Okay, she's always asking, why is this guy behaving like this? Something so small you cannot think. Have you ever had couples complaining or arguing with one another, say, you think like a child, you're very immature. Guys, I always say it's good to be sensitive as we argue or as we try to solve conflict. Okay, but some of these things that I bring across to you should help you be able to guard your tongue. Okay, so if you're married to a man who's of your age, just realize, like, basically between you the age gap is 10 years. 10 years, you're basically 10 years older than this person. All right, and if you're the man, you're basically 5 years younger than this girl. So you must learn the art of communication, and that is why, again, I will emphasize, in coaching we teach you more on how to communicate in various spaces, confidently executing what needs to be said or done. All right, so we've talked about gender differences, race, age, and now I will talk about speech ability, articulation, and language. Basically, guys, I will not even dig or delve deeper into this. It is just the art of speaking. There's some of us who just have that wang. Someone was in Florida, yeah, okay. And some of us who are brought up within very nice cultures where, even when we talk, we struggle with English, okay? So sometimes you will end up getting married to someone who's very eloquent, okay? They're very confident as they execute, the command when it comes to language. Whereas you yourself, you're struggling literally to speak English, okay? So that thing can kind of like create a rift when it comes to communication. Guys, whenever you're falling short, whenever you find yourself struggling in an area, it is so important that you take up classes. Please, no one should stagnate themselves in a certain place. You should definitely never take a seat and say, I was born like this. I was born without an accent. My goodness, that is why we have universities. That's why we have colleges. That's why we have these sessions that we are doing, all right? It's to help you. It is to help you grow. It is to kind of like stir you, shake you a little bit so that you can be able to work on yourself. Guys, look out after you watch this, just go out and check out coaches. I do coaching, but there are so many people, and I'm sure around your area, if you want physical ones, for me it is I do them online. Okay, do your coaching classes. Part of the things we talk about is communication. Learn to be confident. Okay, so that you don't have to have this, what we call the dependency syndrome. You're always, when you go for parties with your husband or with your wife, you want them to talk on your behalf because you just feel like you're very insufficient when it comes to talking. All right, so every one of us has a seed of greatness. The only thing and the only difference between you and someone who is a step of you ahead of you is the commitment and the intentionality to grow in those areas. Now, I want to bring in something very critical here, and that is time. Time and communication go hand in hand. Time and communication go hand in hand. Now, some of us just don't know when to hit that nail on the head. You know, as I said, there are people who just wait when things are going on so well, they come in and they spoil the occasion with their tongues. Okay? Now, whenever you want to communicate something, you must make sure you're in the right mental state. Right mental state. What I'm saying, guys, is when you're angry, please shut up. When you're angry, shut up. Do not talk. Because you might end up destroying something that was very, very beautiful. When you're sick, don't struggle to prove a point. Basically, illness and communication do not just go. When you're sick, please go and get treated. Take time out from the world, heal your body, and then come back to earth. And, and when I'm talking about come back to earth, I say, when we are isolating, you're just moving away from the world. All right. So it takes that awareness for you to be able to do this well. Okay. When you're anxious, when you're suffering from anxiety, when you're stressed, please avoid communicating, because at that time you're considered to be very toxic. So when you come in and start communicating with people, in as much as you may want to really wrap it, you put your makeup on and you're trying to give, sweet words, it will always show, because you already are so toxic that whatever you bring out will have the same energy. I want to just repeat what I normally say every time I want to put a point across. You can never give what you don't have. That's a rule of the thumb. You can never give what you don't have. If you do not know how to communicate, you can never do that art of communication very well. Forget it. Unless you take time to go and sit down and be mentored or taught how to communicate. All right? Now, key thing for communication to be effective, there must be connection, and this connection comes from a place of trust. Basically, guys, if someone fears you, if someone does not trust you, they cannot find you worthy of, their space. They will not want to bond with you. They will not want to pass communication, anything to you that is sensitive. So within the setting of a marriage, connection, trust is very, very important. Now, I always wonder when people say they're busy bonding with their boys, bonding with their girls. You're busy bonding with people who you don't share a bed with. The person who shares a bed with you, the person that you talk to, the person that you have had children with, you have no connection. You have totally no connection. Basically, you operate in that house like robots. You will come in as the mother, you will cook, the kids will be fed, you'll make sure everyone is comfortable. At night, you shower, you go to bed. There is no time where you'll be asking your spouse how their day was. There is no time you'll be asking your spouse what they're going through. Okay? So basically, that behavior of not really getting into that space where you're connecting on a daily basis literally destroys the relationship. Okay? And that is what happens when you age, and the kids go. The kids disappear. Once they disappear, the kids, grow and leave the home. So you're left with your spouse, you and your spouse in that house. And now, in your 60s, in your 70s, you're looking at each other, with those eyes of like, I really want to kill you. I pray that you die so that you can, give me time. Because all the other time you are busy investing in your children, not one to another. You are busy investing in things that really don't matter. And now you've been left what? Just the two of you. And there is nothing to talk about. Simply because you never connected. All right? So anyone who's listening to me today, I want to encourage you. Those kids that you have, they're temporary. But this spouse that you have is kind of like permanent, because it is death. It is still death do you part. So start having or making a habit of spending time together, creating the memories, and investing your emotions with that person. Because all said and done, when the sunset years come, you will need to do a lot of talking because your bodies, whoops, my microphone has fallen. Sorry guys, can you hear me? Just let me know if you can hear me. I'm telling you guys, I am getting better every day. Of course, the challenges are there, but I got a microphone. I got a microphone. I'm so excited. Am I audible? Sorry, my microphone had fallen. Am I audible? Please just give me a thumbs up. Anyone who's there, anyone listening, let me know if you can hear me. I don't know if I'm audible. Oh, yes. Thank you, Judith. Oh, yes. My microphone had fallen in the wrong place. Thank you, Miriam Abwanda. Thank you. So, what I was saying, it's so important to invest in connection and trust. Now, when you talk about trust, trust is deep, and I really want to shelve the trust because it is something that I'm going to talk about as we continue on with the topic of pillars of relationships. All right. Now, let us get to the juice. Thank you, Ras Baby. Let us get to the juice of this message today. As I said, I want to keep it short and sweet, 1 hour. 1 hour the most. All right. Now, when we are communicating with our spouses, when you're communicating with our loved ones, who can be our children, when we are communicating with our colleagues, first rule of the thumb, we must learn to listen for the feeling. You must listen for the feeling. Guys, I'm saying listen for the feeling. Listen for the feeling. I'm not saying listen for the words. Listen for the feelings. Why? Words have power, but behavior communicates what's in the heart. I said that earlier. Now, some of us are like robots. Some of us as spouses are like robots. An individual could be communicating to you their frustration. Now, instead of taking that message, thinking about it, listening for the feeling and empathizing, what you do is you take a step back. You're like, what is this one saying? Hiya, I don't know what she's saying, and you kind of like block. Now, if you don't seek to understand where someone is coming from, if you don't seek to understand what your spouse is bringing across, then you call yourself a failure. Call yourself as one of the people who is bringing down these relationships. Please don't blame the devil. The devil is not there. It's your attitude that is wrong. You're not picking, you're not listening to these feelings. Before your wife or your husband comes and tells you, I am feeling very hurt, they already feel you're the right person, you're the right support system to respond to them. Now, when you listen and you don't respond appropriately because you have missed on their feeling, there goes another damage, which easily creates what? Resentment. Okay? The second thing is hear the content. Hear the content. Now, hearing the content and listening for the feeling, very important, because there are people who are good. As I said, women are very good with feelings and men are very good with words, even though they are very, very, how would I call, they summarize their statements. They summarize, they don't like talking a lot, all right? So you must learn to listen to the words, okay? When someone says, I'm hurting, when someone says, I'm disappointed, when someone says, I need to spend more time with you, and you just don't understand those words, or you take it like, this woman of mine she's just nagging. This husband of mine, he's always just talking, he's always off, bringing certain, talking about things that really don't matter at this time. If you miss catching the words and the feeling, I tell you, I guarantee you from where I sit, that relationship is going down. That relationship eventually will go down. Why? We are human beings. We are created to be social beings. And on top of that, we love being loved. And that is why when we talk about support systems, we talk about it with a lot of feelings. Okay? So for those of you who are here and you think, oh, I normally provide for my wife. I took her, for holiday the other day, I've just put money in her account, I'm wondering why she's complaining when I've provided everything. Have you asked your wife? Have you asked her how she feels about you? Because, yes, you could be doing all these things. It's one thing to put food on the table, but let me tell you, that food is physical. There's something called emotional food. Chicken soup for the soul. All right? So we ought to know that feelings ought to be listened to. And the words that our spouses communicate to us must be taken with a lot of seriousness. This thing of like they're ever nagging, I hear people say, it's just her personality. It's just her personality, she normally explodes, or he's quickly angered, all these things that we try to use as excuses in the relationships to cover our lack or the failure that we have in addressing situations in the relationships should stop. Let me tell you, when you're going through issues in a relationship, calling your pastor, calling the name of God, all these things that we do to try and cover our flaws will never work. Even the Bible says, faith without action is dead. It is one thing to know that God can help you out of a situation. It is another thing to know you're actually contributing to the failure of that relationship. So don't pull in God where you're having flaws. Pray if you must pray, but seek help. Sit down, assess yourself, and see where you're failing. Because some of us are the ones who literally destroy our own relationships. Okay? Number 3, and this one has to do with silent, is it silent treatment? Yes, silent treatment. Guys, I have a PhD. I used to have a PhD in silent treatment. My God. And every time, now when I talk about excuses, you guys, with all due respect, my life is very open, yeah? I'm not afraid of sharing my space, because if I can share my own life and help you kind of like avoid the loopholes that would come and kind of like stagnate you, why not? All right. So in my younger years, I used to, because I used to fear saying the wrong things, so I would just keep quiet, hoping that my spouse would notice the feeling, would capture the feeling. I am hurting. Okay, I need your hug, I need your support. Okay, I am disappointed. So I would just keep quiet. So anytime he would ask me, what's wrong? I would say, I'm okay. Now, I'm saying it's one thing, and that's why I'm saying don't be very quick to believe words. Words can be deceiving. So I'll say, I'm okay. But when you look at my body language, totally different ball game. Basically, my body language is screaming for support. It's screaming for help. It's like, I need someone to come and hug me. Okay? But if you ask me, I am okay. I am okay. All right? So anytime I would not get the kind of response that I wanted, I would just keep quiet. And my keeping quiet was, so that I don't end up saying the wrong thing. Now, for the men who are here, this silent treatment that we bring into the therapy room about our wives, they're just quiet and all that. a lot of this is because they just don't know how to put things across. And because of the respect they have, they'd rather keep quiet. Now, the worst is when you respond with the same. And this is just not only for men, by the way, even for the women. Sometimes it is the men who are silent. And we as women, we go, we take stones and you're like, why are you keeping quiet? You're trying to lash this person. Ebu, you talk, say something, So we end up destroying the relationship because of lack of empathy. Now, body language says a lot. As I said, it still comes from the mind, whereby, you're not able to hide what is actually going on in your heart. So sometimes you find yourself, you're talking, the message that you're passing across has nothing to do with the frown on your face. You're there, you're in the office, you're doing a presentation. Your body language, totally negative. Even the way you're putting words across, it brings in some level of anger, some level of frustration. It just takes one person to say something to trigger you. And there you go. You break down. If not, you attack that person as if they're your enemy. So critically, what I say to ladies especially, that you may have this makeup, but at the end of the day, if you don't do the makeup for your mental health, basically you're gonna fail. All right. So investing in mental health is very, very important. Now, I've talked about listening for feeling. I've talked about hearing the content. All right. And I've talked about observing the body language. Now, what we never do, what majority of us never do, is reflecting to connect. I want to underline that reflecting. Please, that is the highlight, reflecting. At the end of every day, each day, as the sun sets, it is your duty as an individual to sit down and reflect on the events of the day when it comes to how you have communicated to people around you. Very, very important, because you could be the one who is sitting on one side and your spouse is the one who is hurting. But along your busy life, you never notice that that person is communicating to you that they need you. But you have the end of the day. The sun is setting. Sit down and reflect so that you can connect. Sometimes it literally takes taking your phone, checking who messaged you, and you did not really listen for the feeling, and then reaching out. Sometimes I get a lot of audios on my phone. I get some messages and I'll just quickly, because there's so many. But at the end of the day, I still have to go back and check. Did I respond to this person? So sometimes I'll tell you, okay, I'll listen to your audio and I'll respond. And the main reason that I do this is because I want to connect, guys. I want to connect with these people. And part of the things that help us connect is when you're able to kind of like summarize in 2 or 3 words what this person put across to you. When you're doing a verbal to verbal, word to word, you need to learn how to paraphrase. Okay, so what Venus you're saying is that you feel that I'm not supporting you. You have paraphrased. Okay, you have paraphrased that. All right, so very, very important that you must learn to connect through reflection. Basically, it's going back to your mind, checking out, what have I put in my mind today? What have I done to people? When we talk about the support system, the 4 or 5 persons who you consider to be friends, have you checked up on them? When was the last time you asked them how they are doing? Very, very important. So communication is very, very critical because it makes the other person know or feel that you care about them. Now, where there is no connection, you can't find emotion. Where there is no connection, there is no what? Emotion. The result is silence. The other thing that we see is we struggle a lot to keep a conversation going because of lack of connection. Key thing, awareness. Now, this is where I really want to emphasize. At the beginning, I said knowing yourself, self-awareness is very important. Knowing what the Bible says is also very, very important. And that's why I say, don't have this mentality that I have faith. I am praying for my spouse. I am expecting results. You're basically pushing your problems into the bosom of God while you're the one who is the activating agent of this problem that you found yourself in. Now, let me talk about rules and roles. I love touching on those two things. Rules and roles. The Bible says the man is the head of a home. Rule number one. Rule number what? One. So it means within a family, in any relationship, the man of that home is the CEO. Basically, what they say is very critical. Okay? What they pass on to the family members is very, very critical. So we have the head there. Now, take a situation whereby the head is not working. The head has meningitis. The head has mental illness. The head has dysfunctionality. How will this home be? How will this family look like if the head is not aware about his roles? If the head does not know how to communicate? Number one, the man is the head of the home. Now, alongside with this, and I'm not trying to be biased, I am coming to the women. Alongside with this, the Bible says, husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church. And then it says, and women, submit to your husband. So basically, if the husband is the head of the home, then the woman is the neck. Now, take a situation whereby this neck has decided it's going to be stiff. Nothing is running in that home. Like the stiffness, this head will not rotate. So what I'm trying to say is that the head and the neck must communicate. They must synchronize so that if they're saying we are turning to the left, we have turned because the head and the neck has turned. Synergy. So when we have people who do not understand what their role is within the family, problem. Even the children themselves. The Bible says, children, obey your parents. Basically, when we talk about the communication channel, they are the receiving end. The dad speaks, the mom affirms, the children should follow what the parents have said. Now, the problem comes in when the system from the top is not working. How then do you expect to have functional children? How then do you expect to have a submissive wife if you as a man, you're not playing your role? And I will turn this upside down, okay? For the women, how then do you expect your husband to take up his role if you're not submissive? It's so important that we learn to work according to God's desire and will. And one thing that I always say, God has a success DNA. He never fails. And his word is true. So when he says this is how things are supposed to be done, basically that is how things are meant to be done. Okay? Now, let me bring this to a close because we are just 4 minutes shy of the hour. There are certain things that contribute to failures in marriages. and they're pegged to communication. Number one, ego. 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 E-G-O. Where there is ego, there is no God. Because ego is selfish. Ego wants itself lifted on a podium. Ego does not have empathy. Oh, you're crying. Continue crying until you finish those tears of yours. Until ego does not have regard for the word of God. So when some of us women cry and roll on the floor, and we go on our WhatsApp status and we post, we are suffering, we are depressed, and your husband is not responding. Ego. When these men are quiet and they go into caves, never saying anything, never doing anything, and we as the women, we are there, knocking on those doors and not having empathy. Ego. Selfishness. Not being considerate of the other person. Now, pride is the last thing you want to bring in a marriage. There are places where you should not bring pride. And such is marriage. Because when you start feeling like, I'm the man of this home. When I speak, everyone must listen. Or, I found you when you had nothing. Now, this is a woman to the man. I found you when you had nothing. And I have literally funded your well-being. Such things. So you're kind of like bringing in your pride to manipulate how things need to be done. Ideally, I can assure you, 95% rate of your chances of failing are there. 95%. Like basically your failure rate is 95%. So ego, pride, please keep it aside. Fear. Fear is something else that is slowly tearing marriages apart, relationships apart, because a lot of us operate with the fear of rejection or the fear of not being able to meet the expectations of our spouses. So what happens is we take a step back. We never show up when we need to be there. Okay, so fear is something that also encourages dysfunctionality in the relationship when it comes to communicating. Because if you're operating with fear, basically you'll just be doing what is said, what the other person says should be done. You don't have a mind of your own. You don't have a mental perspective of we are working together as a unified front. So even my voice counts in this relationship. Okay. Number 4, perception. Perception and belief system. Now, right now we are in the age of social media, where we go out, we see couples are so in love, and people are just doing life, it's like everyone is so successful, and we desire these things. Okay? Now we start importing what we are seeing out there into our own relationships and wanting to force these relationships to work according to what we are seeing in the social media. Guys, let me say this. Authenticity is very important. Awareness, self-awareness is very important. You must know what is possible and what is not possible. Please, stop pressuring your spouse to buy for you a car, to buy for you a house. Basically, you're not even, the basic needs are not being met. Your husband is struggling to meet the basic needs, but you're there demanding for extra things simply because you went on TikTok and you saw now there's this couple that you follow and they are doing 1, 2, 3 things. Everything takes time. Leave alone the people who have made it. Try and focus on yourself. Work on these small things that we are preaching here, okay? And grow so that in the future, you're the one people are looking up to get to where you are. When you start creating unnecessary stress, communicating that you want or demanding for things, you're basically pulling down that relationship, because what you're doing is trying to sprout out. You're just a seed, but all of a sudden you expect that the moment you're dropped on the ground, you just sprout and become a tree. It is impossible. Everything that God has created takes time to grow. And what is instant has its own side effects, which I don't think you'd want to really bear the price, okay? Another thing that might come in between the process of communication is anger. Now, some of us, cholerics in the house, please lift your hands. You're short-tempered, okay? So when, I will hate to use the word shit, but shit hits the fan, please keep quiet. Just keep quiet. You're better off having silent treatment. Just keep quiet. Instead of banging everything, hitting the cat, hitting the wall, scaring people around, scaring your children. Please tone down your anger. It will interfere with how your family members relate with you. Fifth one, guys, before I close, sorry, I'll ask for 2 or 3 more minutes. Personality issues. Now, if you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button and then please send me a message. Mine's per TV. Please post our number again. Send me a message. I will send you a link so that you can do your temperament test. That should be able to kind of like teach you or show you how you communicate. Okay? Basically, we communicate based on our personality. Sorry, my mic is falling. Yeah, we communicate based on our temperaments. Okay? So, knowing yourself, knowing your spouse, assessing your strengths and weaknesses will be able to help you effectively communicate one to another. And lastly, lack of maturity. I said this before, earlier on during these presentations. If you marry a guy who's younger than you, if you marry a woman who is younger than you, and psychologically, you are factored in the plus or minus 5 years, please then allow yourself to be able to experience some challenges with this person simply because mentally they have not matured. Mentally they have not done what? Matured. So it becomes your role to guide them, to help them, okay, as they try to grow. Now, don't be that person who's always hitting people or bringing people down. Once you realize, awareness again, once you realize that you're dealing with someone who's immature, kind of like try and accommodate them. And also, if you can, get mentors, do coaching so that you can be able to have the relationship that you desire. That's it and done, guys. We are 1 hour 3 minutes into the session. As I said, I'd like to keep this strictly 1 hour, considering tomorrow you'll be going to work. Now, we will be having part 2 of communication. Next week, I should be available for the talk. When you see me not here on every Sunday, just know I'm somewhere, traveling, from one end to the other. But definitely whenever I am on ground, I do this every Sunday for free. Now, I'm hoping that by just listening to this, you're able to kind of like learn 1 or 2 things that you can implement in your own relationship. It could be with your spouse. It could be, with your children. It could be within the career space. But I'm just hoping that this can make a difference. And why do I do this? It's because some of us are not able to afford therapy sessions. And just, the problems that are bringing you to the session might just be related to communication. So I hope that this creates a big, big difference in your life and that you're able to kind of like grow from where you are. Now, I always say this: if you find yourself busy going to buy a car, you're busy buying land, and you're not busy looking for therapists so that you can get some mental, therapy, then you're investing in the wrong thing. If you invest in mental health, that already is a powerhouse that will change your entire future. So, guys, please never shy away from contacting therapists around you. It doesn't have to be me. We are so many, even within the ladies group. If you're new and you're a lady, we have a women's mental health safe space, and we have one for men. If you want to join, please inbox me and I'll add you to the group. Okay? So we have therapists there. We have life coaches there. If you have children who are dealing with issues, we have people who can help them. Let us not sit down and die with our problems. Let me tell you, if you are not born with ulcers, I don't see the reason why you should end up having ulcers. You should end up having diabetes. You should end up having high blood pressure or any other disease because of stress. Why don't you sit down and talk to a therapist who will never go out and gossip about you, but will make sure that the problem that brings you into that session will be sorted by the time you're done with your therapeutic sessions? Guys, I say this: counseling works. I also say this: none of us is perfect. Even me as Venus, I have my own flaws. But when we walk under people who are experienced, when we work with mentors, when we sit down and have solid conversations on what we are going through, the challenges, and choosing to rise above these challenges, then that is called mental strength. So today I want to challenge you to please invest in what I call mental muscle. And I believe if you tone that muscle, that mental muscle, nothing, absolutely nothing will put you down in the future. All right. For those of you who are new here, my name is Venus Chengo. I'm a counseling psychologist, I'm a life coach, and I'm a mediator. And above that, I love God with all my heart. So thank you so much, guys. Till next time, let me wish you a pleasant week. God bless you. Bye-bye.